So you have the inputs changing, you have the model changing, and all of that is built on top of a non-deterministic system that is a nightmare to manage.
When I look at AI and agents, the same issues we've always helped customers with, but times 100 and on Red Bull.
Yeah, like way worse. Yeah.
Today, we'll be discussing where AI is headed and why companies need agent control. See runtime control for agents in action with a live demo and explore how AI is changing the way we build at LaunchDarkly. Welcome to the control panel.
I would say runtime is not only important, but unignorable.
The best companies at the frontier are writing about 3 times as many code as they did in December.
We're getting into the moment where control of the actual software thing, as it's actually in production, becomes more and more important. I'm curious, Edith, how do you think about the landscape right now in terms of AI and agentic adoption? Are you seeing a tremendous spread between low maturity and high maturity? Are you seeing people start to converge? And how are we helping people move from one side to the other?
So I think what's happened in the last few years is it's gone from vague suspicion to, oh my gosh, this is actually really happening.
Do you feel the same way? No denying that this is happening?
So a statistic I saw last week, we're talking spring here, 2026, is the best companies at the frontier are shipping about 3 times as many PRs to production, writing about 3 times as many code as they did in December. Right? So that's where the frontier is, and those who really get it are expected to do it 6 times faster than December by the end of the year. That's incredible. And I love being in this moment because it's like a genie in a bottle. The wish just materializes, and all of a sudden you have software that, I was going to say, runs for some value of runs.
So, in order to kind of accomplish that, in order to get to that level of speed, you need to actually build a whole new level of automation into the entire process. And a lot of that automation is going to be AI-driven.
When I look at AI and agents, they're the same issues we've always helped customers with. But times 100 and on Red Bull.
Yeah, way worse. Yeah, absolutely.
Because at least with code, it's not going to mutate behind your back.
Yeah.
Versus if you're using an LLM, the entire model could change, and by a various nature, it intentionally changes. I'd love to hear your take on what you're seeing.
Yeah, I continue to be just awestruck by how much contingency exists when you bring anything agentic into the world. And that can just be, as you put it, the fact that an LLM is non-deterministic, so you give it an input and the output will change every single time. But also, at the same time, all of the model providers out there are constantly silently shipping updates to those models. So the models are changing. And then the inputs to those models are changing because you have a different customer asking a different question and their expectations change over time. Or your internal data infrastructure is also changing over time. So you have the inputs changing, you have the model changing, and all of that is built on top of a non-deterministic system that is a nightmare to manage. We're getting into the moment where the control in runtime, the control of the actual software thing, as it's actually running, as it's actually in production, becomes more and more important. So, Edith, why are agents the next frontier for the control surface problem we've been talking about?
So LaunchDarkly has always helped our customers control in production. We've always helped folks control code after release and make quick iterations without needing to redeploy. Agents, I'd say, cause a lot more destruction very quickly, and they could just move a lot faster because they are themselves dependent on other underlying infrastructures. So we've always had the ability to guard a release and allow you to quickly react to it. Now we're adding with AgentControl the ability to react to an agent in real time in production.
I'm so cranky about observability. Observability, I think it's important, but the word observe has always really bugged me.
I've said the same thing.
Yeah.
I think observability sounds very passive, and the way at least that LaunchDarkly does it, it's extremely active.
Extremely active, yeah.
So we can observe that something is going wrong, and then do something about it.
Inside the application itself, live in runtime. That's what's so exciting to me. Yeah.
And that's what makes it very valuable. You don't just want an error flashing on a monitor somewhere, I've observed something wrong.
Yeah.
What you really want is a notification of, I've observed something wrong, and I have fixed it.
Yeah.
So we've been talking a lot about agents and controlling them in production. I know that you've been building some really interesting things.
Something really interesting for sure.
Can we get a demo?
Yeah, I'd love to show you around Agent Control. I'm so unbelievably excited about this product. To me, like, we are really able to do something unprecedented in this particular way because of the infrastructure that you guys have supplied. I mean, with feature flags, which, first of all, are like absolutely the primitive of the moment. Everyone is already, for the most part, putting their agentic releases out behind feature flags. Everyone is releasing agent-driven software behind feature flags. It's just the right medium for the moment. Moreover, because of the infrastructure that LaunchDarkly has provided, the tool that me and my team and this amazing team at LaunchDarkly has constructed gives you actually the ability to remediate an agent that's misbehaving in production live in just milliseconds, in literally milliseconds, without a customer ever knowing that any problem had even occurred ultimately. So we've been talking a lot about runtime control. We've been talking a lot about control in production, and I want to show off a little bit of agent control and all of the incredibly interesting and amazing affordances that it provides to allow customers to control agents the place that it matters most, production. And it all starts with a config. And this is a config right here. And a config is a very special, sophisticated feature flag that contains a number of different components that folks can use to build agent harnesses scalably and shareably, collaboratively across an organization. This is one config right here. You can see you have the ability to specify model provider, model, hyperparameter, all that kind of information in one spot. You also have the ability to manage things like prompts, including policies and prompt snippets. You have the ability to manage things like tools centrally with their own version control with a single click of a button, library access. And then you also have the ability to manage online judges, online evals. These are supervisor judges that are essentially always watching production traffic and reporting back when they see things like drift, accuracy-related problems, bias problems, anything else. They're completely configurable. So this is really the heart of agent control. But the coolest thing that we have is this. This is the targeting panel, which we inherit from LaunchDarkly, and it provides so much power when it comes to managing agents in production. The first here is I have the ability to serve different versions of this particular agentic harness to different destinations. I can serve a split in this particular case to my beta users, serving 25% of traffic to, let's say, 4 different model and prompts, and I can collect all that information, look at it, and then come to a strong data-informed assessment of which one of these is the best. I can then also, in pre-production, as I'm starting to work, I can make changes instantaneously without the need to ultimately redeploy the underlying application. If I want to change the agent harness that's being served in this demo over here, all I need to do is click in here, make a change to what's being served. Let's say I'll serve Haiku 4.5 in this particular instance, hit review and save, and that change is live. That change is immediately live in a matter of milliseconds. And that's super, super useful in pre-production where you want to be continuously iterating on different versions of an agent harness to ultimately get a sense of what the best possible agent for that mission is. Of course, you don't want to be naively swapping prompts and models in production. We give you an infrastructure that allows you to make really safe decisions when it comes to ultimately making a change from one agent harness to another. So the most powerful of these is the guarded release. Here, you can see right now, I'm serving this particular segment, this particular model, and this prompt. But let's say a new model has come out where I've made a change to the way that I'm thinking about this agent. Instead of just making a change and committing that in code and watching the deployment happen, what I can do is, with LaunchDarkly, stage a guarded rollout, moving from, let's say, this variation to this variation. In this case, from Haiku to Sonnet. I can then stage a progressive rollout over some destination. We'll handle all that traffic for you. And then, critically, we give you the ability to attach metrics on top of this rollout. So I can add an accuracy metric, let's say from an online evaluator, that AI judge that's constantly watching production and reporting back on the state of things as far as accuracy goes. Can add in duration, cost, even negative feedback from users, all as signals that inform this guarded rollout as it occurs over time.
And if I hit this button here, this auto rollback button, a stats engine that's running underneath the scenes can actually motivate the reversal of this rollout based on detecting any statistical deviation from expectation. That's super powerful. That gives me the ability to make changes, to actually move from this version to this version, from this model to this model, without the fear that I'm going to break something immediately. You can see that I've done a rollout like this right here, and you can see that within a minute and a half, this particular system was able to detect a drop in accuracy and automatically roll back that release. But I want to show you something even more powerful, not just the ability to roll back a release, but also the ability to guardrail a problematic agent from actually creating problems with customers. So this is a really, really powerful feature, and I'll show you what this looks like here. So I'm going to serve this particular demo instance this slightly kind of cost-cutting prompt. I have, I'm going to send, instead of serving Haiku 4.5, I'm going to serve Llama 4 with a very economical prompt associated with it, and I'm going to immediately make that change. Now, I'm going to ask this banking chatbot a question that a banking chatbot really shouldn't answer. And it's a question that, in the field at large, we've seen a lot of high-profile incidents around. I'm going to ask a coding question to this chatbot, and I'm going to see if it's going to help me out with my CS homework. I'm going to open up this terminal on the side so we can see what's happening behind the scenes. And I'm going to ask it a leak code question. Help me reverse a linked list in Python. So it's pulled these configurations. It's pulled one configuration, and now it's pulled this configuration right here. That's ultimately making the decision about how to answer it. And ruh-roh, you can see that I'm getting a Python example back. We don't want that. We definitely don't want that from our banking chatbot, and our bank definitely doesn't want that for us. You can see here that the judges that have been running underneath the surface absolutely hate this answer. Dramatically out of scope, fabricated technical content, should have redirected customer to appropriate banking-related assistance. Absolutely. This is not an appropriate response back from a banking chatbot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on a guardrail. And what this guardrail is going to do is it's going to leverage LaunchDarkly's targeting infrastructure to actually escalate when it sees a problem. Now, the online judge that's running underneath the surface, if it sees a failure, it's going to bring in a more powerful model. In this case, it's going to escalate to Sonnet 4 as a fallback. I'm going to ask it the same question here. Help me reverse a linked list in Python. See, initially making a decision about the kind of question it is. Now, it's going to send that over to Llama because that's the version that I've ultimately keyed in here. But you can see that the guardrail intervened immediately. And now it's pulling in that fallback, and I get a really professional answer back from Sonnet that says, yeah, I mean, this is a banking chatbot. What are you doing? This is not the right resource for you. And moreover, I get some nice metrics back, and I get a very happy evaluator that says, good job, agent, my little agent friend, you did the right thing by refusing to answer this question. So hopefully you can see a couple things have happened here. First, if I want to bring in a new version of an agent harness, if I want to actually make a change to agents that I'm serving in production, the best way to do that is with a guarded release. And in that guarded release, you can essentially progressively roll out that new version. LaunchDarkly will handle that traffic segmentation for you. And then if the underlying stats engine sees a problem with accuracy or toxicity or latency, it'll automatically roll back that release to the prior known good version. But then you can have an additional level of safety, this time really happening at runtime, where this guardrail is actually looking at the result of live online evaluators and bringing in new harnesses based on that information that are more powerful, that are maybe more capable of handling advanced, difficult, or problematic questions. These are two really powerful runtime control tools. But I want to show you something even cooler. So you can see that there's a lot of production level signals that are going into all of this control surface. What happens if you take those signals and actually turn them into a continuous optimization machine? So I'm going to show you my favorite part of AgentControl, which is the agent optimization tool right here. I'm going to go into this particular configuration right here, and I'll show you what this means. The optimization tool right here gives you a couple different options when it comes to customizing what optimization means. You have the ability to do exploratory testing or structured expected output testing. You then essentially guide the underlying agent to make a decision around what the right outcome is, what you're trying to optimize for. Are you trying to optimize for speed? Are you trying to optimize for token spend? Are you trying to optimize for accuracy, or all of the above? You then pick a variety of different models to iterate from. You pick the harnesses that you want to operate on top of. You set your token spend, and the SDK does the optimization work for you based on those production signals that you've taken from LaunchDarkly. And the result, honestly, is pretty amazing. I'll show you this right here. This is the result of just 3 iterations. I was able to dramatically improve accuracy. I was able to halve the net processing time of the response. And I was also able to more than half the cost of the response in terms of tokens and cost. That's super, super powerful. Imagine what that looks and feels like at scale. You can see how if you're able to leverage this type of mechanic to build agents out, especially at scale, especially from production data, how LaunchDarkly and AgentControl becomes critical infrastructure for the software factory. The software factory is all about continuous improvement based on real production signals, and we give you the ability to harness those signals and bring them into the agentic world. Well, I hope you guys thought that was pretty cool.
It's really cool.
I thought it was super cool.
I know that you've been dogfooding AgentControl a bit to build something really special. Would you mind telling me a little bit about it?
No, it's super secret.
I give you permission. I think it's super cool.
No, in fairness, we are doing something with it. We call it Project Fairytale internally because every good engineering project deserves a code name.
Code name, yeah.
Although this one should be obvious when you hear it, which is how do we put this into practice? My belief is the best products come out of companies that solve their own problems, and our problem is going faster and faster and faster. And so we've implemented Project Fairytale as our internal dog fooding of proving out that this really works in production. We're shipping 3 times more code than we shipped just 3 months ago.
Wow.
Using this process to build automated PRs, automated reviews, automated feature flagging, all of the things that you just described in that amazing demo, we've been doing internally now for the last few months with a very small team behind it.
What for you is the coolest component of Project Fairytale?
I think the coolest component is it continues to evolve, where we continue to allow evals through agents to make decisions for us. Is this the right thing? Is this high risk? Where do I have to bring a human into the loop? And we talked about earlier how we're going so fast that the bottleneck is no longer writing code. It's things like PRs, right, where you have to have a human review it. Well, I still would have to staff up for those humans. So can I apply agentic judgment to be able to evaluate, do I need a human? Is this low risk? Does this even need a flag because it doesn't change runtime behavior or it doesn't involve AI? And that's really freeing and liberating, where we can take our humans that are there and put them on the best, most important, most interesting cognitively work that's out there, and I don't have to put them on the toil.
So Edith, are we gonna productize this? Like, what does this look like? Do you think other people have this problem, or is this just a LaunchDarkly thing?
I think LaunchDarkly is very much like our customers. We have literally thousands of customers worldwide who rely on us.
Right.
We also, and I'll be honest, we have a lot of code of various age. There's some code in our code base that's over 10 years old.
Wow.
So a term Gene Kim uses to describe code bases like that is they become haunted.
Ooh, spooky.
Where literally you might have a piece of code base that hundreds of people have checked code in, have different patterns, different framework, and it becomes almost impossible to modify that code base. So a project that one of our principal engineers, Zach, worked on was to use agents to clean up that code base. And it was so amazing to see a project that we thought would take a year plus, honestly, of refactoring and get it down to a speed that could be measured.
We did a lot of good learnings around evals too. What does it mean? Code is often structurally correct, but functionally incorrect.
Yeah.
Right?
Been there.
Yeah, right? Like it looks, hit compiled.
Beautiful, yeah.
Hit compiled, or the agent did it, is the new worked on my machine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Worked on my machine. But learning those eval loops, right? Learning to say not just are the pixels in the right place for this button,
Right.
but when I click into the button, do the right menus appear? As I go into the right menus, are the right APIs called with the right parameters? This is all a very high level of validation and verification, and learning how to connect that all up and re-kick off that release, observe, iterate loop of pushing this through has been game-changing for us. If you were to give somebody else advice who is a little less forward, a little less certain about trying this out because, oh, maybe I'm not here yet, how would you tell them to get started?
It's always a challenge to convince people that you can leverage AI as a supervisor of other AI agents. I think people always think that either there's going to be like a cabal, like AI agents can be like, no, I'm on the side of the AI agent, so I'm always going to rank it unfairly. Or people will think, if a given agent is already hallucinating, why would another agent be good at making a decision around a hallucination? I think something that I've learned while working on agent control is that actually agents are incredibly, incredibly good at judging the work of other agents critically. It's just a matter of making sure that they have the right context and the right intent behind that. But they're actually even better at judging the work of other agents than they are at doing the work themselves.
I think a crucial part there is that you have to give them criteria to judge on.
Exactly.
Like if you say to an agent, is this work good?
Yeah.
They do not know the meaning of the word good.
Yeah.
Like it's not a word that has meaning, but if you say is this fast enough? Is it meeting our needs?
You literally give it a series of checks. Did binary evaluations. Did it do this or not? 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 At the end of the day, it's the human who's owning the intent. It's the human who's ultimately owning that arbitration of what good is and whether or not this thing is useful and actually serving my need as an engineer or as a business. But it's amazing the kinds of frameworks that you can give AI to ultimately come to judgments about whether or not the result is good.
But you absolutely have to be responsible for those frameworks, because otherwise it's very easy to say, well, pass all the tests. What did the tests say? Nothing.
Like, how do you guys think about and negotiate the balance between controlled automation and full automation? How do you make a decision around what kind of automation to control and when to build in controls? And how do you make a decision around when maybe we're just going to let the machine go burr on its own for a while?
So I'll speak for this particular project.
Yeah.
So Zach was the engineer who did it, and he said the more checkpoints he built in, the happier he was.
Really? Okay.
So he broke it into, as I said, about 19 distinct, this is a different area. Because as you well know, if you're putting models at something and one starts drifting and then the other starts drifting, you don't have just the error of that one model, you have it compounded by every other model.
Absolutely, yeah.
So making it sure that if something was going slightly off, that it could come back to the right path very quickly was crucial.
Yeah, it's really about building that framework or the guardrails around the project. We all want determinism. One of the things I've always loved about software, I'm going to speak for Edith here, is when you tell the computer to do something, it does it.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're no longer in that world. And so being able to have strong guardrails that push us to that world, because that's what software is really good at, is these deterministic outcomes. By pushing it back with these guardrails, it's been game-changing. And that checkpoint, that series of checkpoints, is how you do it.
Yeah, I think this is a nice kind of place to end up. I do think that the future is not let's let the robots kind of ship whatever. And it's also kind of at the same time not we got to slow everything down so that humans can inspect every little corner of every little thing. The future is controlled automation, right? That's what we've been talking about. And AI can really help teams build more, modernize more, and automate more, but only if that work is actually really wrapped in guardrails, feedback, signal intelligence, as you were saying, and the ability to respond while systems are actually live in production. And so if you're just getting started, that is the system you need. You need all those things, right? Not just a way to experiment with AI, but a way to control it. Guardrails around what agents can do, signals that tell you what's happening, and the ability to really actually take action before any user feels the ultimate failure. That's what runtime control really gives teams. And that's why agent control is just such a natural next step for LaunchDarkly. The mission has always been control in production. The surface area is just expanding from code to agents. In the AI era, speed isn't the same thing as risk. Lack of control is. Edith, Cameron, thank you. It's nice to see you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was great.
Yeah. And thanks everybody for joining us. You've heard the strategy, now come get your hands dirty. Join us June 24th for a hands-on agent control workshop where we'll work through prompts, models, evals, and feedback loops so you can see runtime control in action.